Hello, everybody. This is Bitcoin Not Crypto. My name's Forrest Stevens. We have a guest on, Laura from Citadel. Can you tell me a little bit about what your interest in Bitcoin is?
My journey with the Bitcoin side started in 2015, and I met somebody online that just told me about it, and I'm pretty much open-minded, so like it sparked my curiosity enough to look into it and just purchase some because I would like for me, I'm an experiential learner. So when I have vested interest in something, I go and learn about it. So the Bitcoin journey has been a full decade journey about learning about, the financial side. We're really not taught about how money works in school in our traditional education system. Um, and so, yeah, I was just introduced to Bitcoin in cyberspace, really. And I met my Bitcoin master, and he really taught me, um, the hoops of like securing your Bitcoin, and I didn't really understand like the significance of Bitcoin back then because there wasn't that much educational material. There was Andreas Antonopoulos was like my first Bitcoin teacher, as is probably a lot of people. And um, what my Bitcoin master was from England. He's from the UK, and it was in 2016 we were going through this like our political journeys together. Trump had won here in the United States. Brexit had happened in the UK, and I learned a little bit more about the global financial system, really, and what was happening in Europe and why Brexit was happening, how Britain was going off the European standard. And so yeah, the Bitcoin journey has been a 10-year a path of learning about the global financial system. And I think for most of us in 2020 when COVID hit, um, I had quit my fiat job in 2017 to take care of my mother, and so I was just trying to secure our savings, our life savings, right? My mother's life savings that she had, I mean, she just penny pinched her social, like her social security checks, and like we were living, I had to quit my job to take care of my mother full time. So I was just trying to secure our savings. And I didn't, at that point, I think that's when I really, uh, I saw Michael Saylor's video with John Ballas. And I think that was my orange pill moment of really understanding Bitcoin as the entire system. And I come from an engineering background. My fiat job was as an engineer. I worked for the Boeing company as a process engineer. So when Michael Saylor had done a deep dive on What Is Money Show and various other, podcasts, I went down that rabbit hole. And here I have my little rabbit behind me. But yeah, 2020 really when the COVID between 2020 and 2021 was when I went full in on the Bitcoin rabbit hole and came out of Maxi. And so I think that's kind of where I had been working the decriminalization activism, but then I came across Brandon Quittem's Bitcoin is the Mycelium of Money article. And so I was like, okay, there are people, connecting the way you look at the way you look at the world through a psychedelic lens, kind of like a big picture view, macro view, and then the Bitcoin side as a network system of money and energy exchange. So that article really provoked me to go find the people that were in the Bitcoin Twitter space, or now X, and then I became connected to Bitcoin Twitter, and then the rest is sort of history. And so yeah, that's sort of my Bitcoin journey over the last decade. And really, we're going through a transition now. From Psilocybin Citadel was the advocacy side, and it was named on another podcast. So I've just been surfing the cyber wave and creating and meeting artists and musicians and creators really in the Bitcoin Twitter slash X space. So that's sort of been the Bitcoin journey, and then the psychedelic mycelium, advocacy for healing. So that kind of covers my journey with the Bitcoin side.
So you mentioned there the connection, the mycelium network of mushrooms growing and money. And you mentioned here as well, psilocybin citadel. What is sort of what what have you been doing with that? What is the kind of goal? What is the connection, and how does Bitcoin link into what you're doing with the decrim work that you've been doing?
It's a really important question. Yeah, on the decriminalization side, I had been, I come from the Burning Man school. So that was really where I first became exposed to psychedelic medicines. And about a decade ago, I had experienced very close death experiences. My father had passed away, and my partner had died very suddenly. So, within a short period of time, I was having to process a lot of these death experiences. And so I went through traditional cognitive behavioral therapy and like group meditation at a Thai Buddhist monastery for 6 months. But really, when I had used psychedelic mushrooms for like connecting with people and like going out to festivals, but I had never really used it to really connect with myself. And so I had been using psychedelic medicines for over the last 20 years. And when I quit my job, my fiat job, I had another close Burning Man brother that died on Thanksgiving, and so that was really about the time frame when um, Oakland was starting to do a decriminalization activism. And my brother, my Burning Man brother that died, he was really my first mushroom teacher as well. And so that was really what provoked me to become more active in psychedelic advocacy. And I went and just because I had quit my job, and my mom was still, she was disabled, but I had time to really re-educate myself on the psychedelic side as well as the Bitcoin side. So I went down I read Terrence McKenna books and all these like psychonauts that had like talked about it. And yeah, and then I became more active in the decriminalized nature. It's a decentralized organization, much like Bitcoin is. And it really started from Oakland. And so I became more of I guess, just a journalist of just journaling which cities were, actively trying to decriminalize so that if you do have psilocybin mushrooms or other natural medicine possession, that there won't be any criminal activity, or you won't be, arrested or prosecuted for possession of small possession. So that was the decriminalized nature movement. That was really just everyday people going to city councils and telling people about stories that, these psychedelic medicines have helped them to overcome trauma or death experiences or PTSD and so on. So, yeah, so I became more of like, I just chronicled all of the decriminalization movements that were happening around the United States and globally. And then in 2020, uh, uh, in the United States, it moved from the city level to the state level, with Oregon passing two measures. So Oregon had two measures. One was a decriminalization measure, but they were also trying to figure out the legal framework in Oregon. And so we like I'm located in the Pacific Northwest in Washington State, and so we were, watching these really psychedelic psilocybin retreats forming in Oregon. But the pricing that was coming in because of the inflation, right? There's, the overall inflation that's happening with labor rates and whatnot. So these psychedelic journeys in Oregon were costing like I've seen ranges from anywhere from about $3,500 to upwards of like 15 grand. So that's like ridiculous, like for a mushroom journey. Like, so that was when, I was going down the Bitcoin rabbit hole and understanding how money works and looking at, these pricing schedules in Oregon for a medical model, right? So it has to be licensed and all that, like all the regulations, they add up cost. So that was when I sort of put the two sides together, the Bitcoin side, the money economic side, and then the psychedelic psilocybin access. It became a access issue for psychedelic medicines because even Burning Man, like where I was first exposed to psychedelic medicines at a festival setting, I mean, Burning Man inflation, when I went back, I haven't been on the scene in 10 years. It's cost thousands of dollars to go out to party in the desert, right? So so that was when I was like, okay, we really have to fight for access to these psychedelic medicines so that there isn't an economic tier access. So that really became Psilocybin Citadel, which is the advocacy group that we've really formed online on Bitcoin Twitter space. And I in 2022 we had a team, an advisory group, come together, and we popped up a couple of we had a booth in Miami, the Bitcoin bazaar, for example, and we like sold merchandising and things like that. But we were able to utilize Bitcoin to get, like I sponsored like our IT person to go out there, and then we had a lawyer on board that advised us on like, what psilocybin citadel really is about, and we really discussed that it really is about education and advocacy, both on the Bitcoin side of learning about how to use this, global, monetary like ledger that is accessible to anybody without like permission. And then on the psychedelic side, the safe and responsible use of psychedelic medicines to really like, connect and really heal, connect, with each other, connect with yourself, connect with your, divine self. However you utilize medicine, we believe that the state has no say in how our relationship with our sacred medicines are. So that's sort of like where we're at. And right now we're transferring, I mean, with Bitcoin really, becoming, we're at a point now that nation states are starting to adopt Bitcoin. So I'll pause there, but that's sort of been our journey of navigating the psychedelic side as well as the economic side. And I have a tagline that I kind of starting to use on Bitcoin Twitter and real space too when I'm connecting with this the art and music community is really, without financial health you have no mental health, because you're always so worried about, how you're going to really get your food, on the table tomorrow, or how you're going to pay your bills, and you're having to work three jobs. No matter how much psychedelic medicine you do, or how much therapy you go to, or how much, music and arts that you do, if you don't have a stable economic basis, you cannot heal. So Bitcoin really is essential, really, to the arts and music community, so we can still continue to create. So that's sort of yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now, and we're just transitioning over to from the advocacy side to really building on Bitcoin now.
Oh wow, yeah. No, that's incredibly interesting. I mean, one thing there that came to me was just the fairness, right? Like it's kind of unfair that the access to treatment, or like the access to psilocybin mushrooms, if that's what you think or what you've seen success with for your mental health is out of reach for so many people when if they've been priced out of it. And again, with Bitcoin, it's like it's the what I love about Bitcoin so much is just how fair of an entire system it is. Like anybody can buy Bitcoin, and you can buy it at such a fractionized amount that it's accessible to anybody with like basically any amount of money, right? Like one Satoshi is less than a cent. So the the playing ground is really fair. So that seems like a cool way of connecting, and bringing in what you're doing there with Citadel. Another thing that you said there that was really impactful, I thought, was just how like economic health is so important, and the money is totally broken, and basically it is one thing I think about, right, is a lot of pushback for Bitcoin is like the energy use that it has for Bitcoin mining, because it's such a easy thing to encapsulate, but it's very difficult to encapsulate all of the problems of how unfair the monetary system is. Like you mentioned, how not having economic health as an individual, it's hard to have mental health after that, and it's like that that impact is very hard to quantify. It's very hard to put all that together and think, um, about all of the different knock-on effects of having a broken money, right? And one of them, like even the environmental side, it's very hard to think about, like, if we have a money that gets worth less every single day, it incentivizes spending, and consumerism uses energy and makes all these products, and that has an environmental effect. It's just very hard to calculate all that, and it's something that I haven't really thought about as much, the mental health component of Bitcoin. But I've noticed for myself, like I feel a lot more stable seeing my savings go up, because that's how I treat Bitcoin, right? I just treat it as my savings account. Any extra money I have that I don't need for rent, I just put into Bitcoin, and then I look at it a month later, 2 months later, a year, whatever later, and hey, that's I have more run rate. If I need to dip into that, it's not so painful. I can do that. So yeah, that's a very relieving feeling, I feel like. So that's an interesting point about Bitcoin, is the effect on the mental health.
Absolutely. And I've been, I'm just like I mentioned, I'm an experiential learner. So I have to go and try things out to learn about it, learn how things work. But the Bitcoin space is amazing. Like once you start utilizing some of these like wallets and get yourself set up, like I just traveled, my caregiving journey with my mother finished in spring, starting in the late summer, I traveled. I went to Colorado to check out the Telluride Mushroom Festival, and did a cross country trip. And I have a Fold card now, which is a checking account that you can send Bitcoin to. Like, I really want to put a shout out to them because it's an amazing like technology. And I just went to Japan too, to Bitcoin Tokyo, uh, and yeah, I there was a lightning market there, lightning marché, and there was crafts people that did a pop up for a morning, and I was able to buy like people creating these amazing Bitcoin goods on the lightning market. So like and just it's phone scan and so forth. So for me, I'm just like, wow, this is amazing technology, and it really feels like magic internet money because you can just send it and it pops up into a different location in cyberspace. And so, yeah, I've always, come from an anarchist school of like just do it and try it and see what happens. And we want it, so the Citadel really wants to create, pop-up events really so that we can, like Bitcoin Session is doing Saturday markets up in Canada, so they get like local, vendors to like, get on the Bitcoin network, teach them, right? That's part of our mission statement too, is to educate. But once you learn it, just like anything, it's you learn it much more faster than a conference sort of like a headspace setting. So like a lot of us, I think, that love exploring our minds, I think we'll go and dig down and get manic about it. But your everyday person is not going to go down the rabbit hole deep as we all did, right? So, really, what we want to do is create some pop up events within the arts and music scene here in Seattle. And, just do a weekend festival where maybe we just do, like I love cooking. So, like, I'll, like, do a pop up, like I have a idea, it's called Meet Me at the Meat Bar, and just do all kinds of meat, like like different exotic meats, and try to like run a market with it, so like that's the kind of like events we really want to do, and be able to have these amazing local artisans create beautiful pieces, and then both online and in real space. So I have like various things like located around me that are all created. These are Bitcoin artists like that. This is Asanoha. He does some screen printing. This is Alani that did the Bitcoin globe. We already have, every time there's artists and musicians, it's a healthy economy. That's my view of things. And so, really, Psilocybin Citadel is trying to bring together, the Citadel is bringing together, the online artist community, the music community, as well as the local Seattle scene, and then get them upgraded to the Bitcoin network as a local economy exchange, even if it's at a festival setting only to begin with, and then teach, use those settings to teach people how to utilize Bitcoin and how to, secure your hardware wallet, and then bring in instructors and so forth to do that. So it's just a place, so that we can all educate ourselves in how to utilize Bitcoin. And we did, and I want to mention that we did have a security breach this last week too, and I was, we were able to secure some funds, but we did lose some funds. So it was an old hardware wallet, and it forced me to really upgrade our security status. But yeah, I mean, I'm at my limit too, on the Bitcoin knowledge side. So, yeah, we're just trying to, create a space where we can bring in Bitcoiners. We can bring in the local Seattle art and music community. I have Sarah, who is my number one right now. She's, come on board. I met her just recently at a Halloween community party, and she's works for the high-end interior design community, and is a socialite in the music scene. So she's gathering troops for us to be able to, like, really try to upgrade these local artists and musicians, to start utilizing Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. So yeah, that's what we're hoping to do, and we really want to protect these spaces, this festival settings, and and eventually ceremonial, like traditional ceremonial settings to heal, because I think in Washington state, in 2026, usually in the midterm years, we have measures that go forth, and there is a new measure that's coming in Washington called responsible use of entheogenic medicines. It's called REACH. I can't remember the acronym, but really we want to begin running some events to advocate for decriminalization, and then and to have a say in the legal structure that gets formed of and we will go through any kind of hoops that we need to do to get the licensing, as long as it's clear and that and fair. I think we'll navigate through that legal framework. But the law really wants to define our relationship with these, sacraments or medicines. So, who's to say, like, how is the state to say that my relationship with a mushroom is recreational if I'm listening to music with my friends? Or if I'm, I had a traumatic event and I need to use it to get over a death experiences as medicine, or a very spiritual experiences where you're with your tribe dancing and, like, just be in awe of a sunset, at the beach or whatever, right? How is the law going to define our relationship with natural ingredients? So that's where I think Bitcoin's ethos and the decriminalization ethos is about protecting our ability to be, without the state defining our relationship with these sacred medicines, or how we exchange energy with peer to peer. Like, who's to say, like, I can't transact with my friends and family if you do me a favor, or whatnot. Like, and these psychedelic substances that have been banned for 50 years. So that's kind of why we're pushing back, saying, no, we want to make sure we protect these spaces without the fear of being, prosecuted or jailed. So, coming forward, the Free Ross movement, I mean, he was really like, 10 years ago doing what we want to do. And Silk Road, I mean, for all intents and purposes, still had some safety checks, And so now, because there's a community, so if you had bad drugs on, it would be flagged, right? People would report that dealer. But now you have on the streets, like, all these crazy fentanyl, and like, the opiate crisis really, like, that was when I was like, the traditional medicine fucked a lot of people up. So, like, I'm just like, no, like, these healing medicines are banned, and these, drugs that you pushed on, through the traditional medical system have gotten, like, the huge populations addicted to these medicines. So yeah, everything's turned upside down, and so we're trying to really fix that. And being able to heal in community is really important, because that's really where the real connections happen. So that's kind of where we're at, and really trying to push back to educate people on both Bitcoin and safe and responsible use of psychedelic medicines and sacraments.
Yeah, it sounds like both things have some similarity with the concept of just personal freedom, right? And we should be personally able to, like you said, exchange whatever we deem as uh, money, basically, which is time and energy abstracted into form. And, I think Bitcoin is money. Um, but, different regulators will deem it, an investment, and then there's capital gains, or whatever, like there's all sorts of different regulation and laws and rules that need to change for things like that. And then again, yeah, there's that similarity with something like psilocybin, where uh why are these mushrooms, why is something as simple as a mushroom illegal for somebody to have and take recreationally, or however they want, like why should we not have the freedom to do what we believe is best for us? um and yeah, it comes down to these weird incentives too, like who benefits from the control of these things, right? Like, we can look at the corruption of money very obviously, like being able to print what we all deem as money at no cost, and then all of us that can't do that, we all have to work for it while somebody else can print it. Like that's a super unfair on the scale of fairness. And then yeah, it's like with mushrooms, like you're not allowed to take mushrooms, but you can take this pharmaceutical that we all profit from some way, and there's lobbying that makes it go through. It's just we can look at these things and see some misaligned incentives and some um some real I would say like injustices of freedom. I would say, I would really say that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's body autonomy and sovereignty, really, it's sovereignty. It's sovereign medicine and it's sovereign money. And so really, like, that's really the bottom line is, I worked, not just myself, my mother included, so 2 generations, right? Savings is being the purchasing power is being depleted because there is, debt that is growing and you can't compete with free debt that's being, so every year your savings account that you work for your entire life and your mother saved for your entire like 80 years of her life is completely the purchasing power just like went down 40% in just 1 year because of COVID and the money printing that happened between 2020 and 2021. And just so people know, I mean, like none of this is taught. Like I went through public school, I went through college, like how money work is never taught ever. And so you have to really just do the work, the proof of work, proof of mind to like learn about how money works and how central banks collude to, prop up the global financial system so that, the industrial the way that the macro view that I see things is that I've come to term that fiat was also necessary over the last 50 years because the technology was not advanced enough, right? I mean, checks that our parents used were a technology that you can just bring from one bank to another and then you could deposit. And so while I was going through Colorado, this is kind of why I had it. Because you go through these old Western towns and like they have these beautiful bank buildings that, like, you didn't want to get robbed between one bank and the other. So you used a slip, right? To like say, I deposited how much ever gold or whatever in this bank so I can bring that slip to another bank and then withdraw cash and not get robbed in between. So I think that fiat over the last 50 years was necessary to develop all these technologies. And then now it's out of, the national debt and the debt globally is just trillions and trillions of dollars. So they didn't, we're not producing value as much as we're really withdrawing, and then we're burdening that debt to the next generation. So I'm peak Gen X, so like I barely squeeze by, and then anybody younger than me really like cannot even afford a house or like raise a family anymore. So, and this is happening globally. So, this is a revolution. Bitcoin is a revolution so that we can really just hold on to our savings so that we can live off of it without working for the man our entire lives.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. That's so true. Um, with all of that, I mean, I noticed on your website for Citadel there that you guys say that you're on the Bitcoin standard. What does that mean for you, and how does that work?
Yeah, so I think what we really want to do, and this is what we're trying to set up for 2025, is really the way that I think we're going to set everybody up is like through the fold card so that everybody has it's a company card, right? Just like having a company card. And then we will in January, at the end of January, we have a meeting set up here at Citadel headquarters, which is my house. um, um, we have a meeting set up so that we can allocate funding for what we want to do, and then we will distribute those funds through, and then all the directors or creators will receive uh, essentially, if you get a commission to produce something for the Citadel, like we're building some capital. So like we have a farm down in Santa Cruz, which is one of my homies. He's developing a farm and he needs some farming equipment. So we're gonna sponsor that through the Citadel, and now I'm setting him up with a fold card, so now I can distribute the Bitcoin, right? And then as he needs to pay for some heavy equipment or get cash, he can withdraw that by selling the Bitcoin directly on Fold, and then getting the funds into essentially a checking account. So really, we're just setting up everybody within the Citadel with a savings and a checking account through Fold, right? And you could do it on Strike and some of these other. I guess Cash App would allow us to do that too. So there's other ways. There's competing, companies that's going into that new banking realm. Well, you can use just a checking account, because that's what I've been doing this last year. Is all my bills are now pointed to my Fold card, so I can pay all the bills. So we'll just have the corporate version of that, and then every member of that company card can utilize it for Citadel purchasing. So that's how I think we're going to set it up. Is essentially everybody has their own savings account and debit card, and as you need money, you withdraw it, as to spend for uh capital, or creating events, or if you work at an event, for example, you'll get paid there. So that's kind of how we're setting that up.
I wish we had Fold up here. I'm in Canada. It seems like an awesome system, and the rewards that you get, like, it seems extremely fair that way too, where they split the basically any merchant fees they get, they split 50-50 with you, which is just incredible. And it all comes back in Bitcoin, right? Like that's crazy. I wish that we had it here.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, look into, if you haven't checked out Fold, like, really, I really highly recommend it. Like, you stack it's like rewards. You get rewards like points and stuff. And then you get a Visa debit card that's just like a checking account. So it's amazing. It's amazing technology. Shout out to Brian, I think that was developing or helping with that. There's some amazing people developing really great applications on Bitcoin, and that's really I think this round, the 10 years I've like watched Bitcoin, this is real these are the type of technologies that we need to make it go mainstream. So this epoch, I guess, is really, really like, is different than anything else that like we've seen so far. So it's really exciting times. I mean, it's really the transition is happening. And yeah, we're just trying to position ourselves so that we can still continue to like have community creatives, music and arts is really healing in community. So that's what we're trying to create on top of Bitcoin here.
Yeah, that's awesome. So it sounds like you've been, trying to orange pill the music scene, the art scene there, in Seattle. I think you mentioned you're in Seattle. Is that right? So how has that been? Like, have you gotten any pushback from people? Have you got people interested? Like, what have the skeptics said? What, like, has there been some success stories? Like, what's going on there?
No, I've been terrible. My orange pill skills are like horrible. I think I push too much. So, no, finally, I think that's another thing that's changing. Absolutely. I've had zero like interest in anything Bitcoin related from my like community, friends and family in real life, over the last decade. But so yeah, this time around, I went straight to really the music community, and I found somebody, that we mutually wanted to, really just, you know, art and music scene. She's an artist too. Is like we really want to like, protect the space for us to be able to like have a music and art community. Yeah, I think this time, I think the Bitcoin message is sticking a little bit more, and obviously, like, I mean, the economy is just like, anybody, especially the younger generations. I think that's in the other thing too, is like I'm able to go out to back into the scene. And then my late partner and I always talked about how important it is to have multi-generational tribal systems, because information is relayed from different generations to another. So there's knowledge transfer that happens. And so I think now the younger, like millennials and down, especially Gen Z. I love Gen Z because they're just like they're a very creative community, and I think they're the first generation that's grown up native to having the internet, um, like in their entire life. So I feel like they're a little bit more natural in a cyber setting, and yeah, I think they're much more open minded. I mean, they've got little to lose too, right? They're just starting their lives out, so really, I think that the younger generations are coming on board and becoming a little bit more open minded about like, okay, well, and especially when we say we'll teach you, like, don't worry about that, we'll teach you, like, don't be scared, like, we'll teach you how to navigate through this and get you set up. So I think that's why I think it's important for us to be able to have projects, because um, I think that when you, whatever the project is, it doesn't really matter. But when you work together, and everybody's learning, together, it's just much more fun than like having to watch like a video of like how to, do a lightning transaction. Just like open up a market and let's just try it. So that's kind of like, it's a way for all, it's a skill trade area where we can trade skills. Like I actually made a deal. I've always wanted to learn how to DJ, so my creative, director Sarah, she brought a DJ friend home a couple nights ago, and I was like, will you teach me, how to DJ? And she was like, yeah, I'd love to. And I'm like, I'm going to compensate you back in hourly rate of to in Bitcoin, and I would love to teach you how to do Bitcoin back. And so it was a direct peer-to-peer skill trade, right? Where she's going to teach me how to do a little bit of, DJing, and I'm going to pay her. The Citadel is going to pay $21 an hour. That's our going rate. That's our labor rate. So $21 an hour to teach me how to DJ. So that's the kind of stuff that like we want to like create, is just a really just a peer-to-peer economy within the art and music scene.
No, that's awesome. I mean, yeah, Bitcoin's a network, right? So the more nodes, the more people connected to that network, the better the network is, the bigger and better it works. And it can start as simple as that. Like that's what I've started to do is anytime I go out and somebody, pays for the meal and I got to pay them back, I'd say, okay, well, I'll pay you back, but only in Bitcoin, only in Lightning. And it's become that way, and that's been a way that I've orange pilled a few people. It's just, and it's not like they've gone super deep, but it's like it's a starting point, right? And I think that that's part of Bitcoin too, is just like not everybody needs to go super deep into it. It's like we all just need to learn like the amount and what we care about it, because you could get super technical on in Bitcoin, but like you don't actually need to be able to understand enough of how it works. And like I think the biggest thing really is like learning the security of it, like how to hold your funds properly and all this, right? Like that, keeping your hardware up to date, or checking on it or switching over, like these kind of things are pretty important. But then otherwise, it's like, well, it just kind of, on the surface, it kind of works like any other digital money, right? Like it's all on the back end that all of the proof of work is happening, that blockchain ledger, like all these other components that make it special. But you don't necessarily see that, right? Like you have to kind of dig deeper. But yeah, another thing you said there is the different generations and the younger generations. Like I think money is progressively become a problem. Like the money that we use, it's getting worse and worse as the debt climbs, and as it's impossible, basically. Like we look at the nation's debt and we think, okay, this is a spiraling debt out of control. They're taking out debt to pay the interest of their previous debt, and it's just, well, when does this end, right? And you start to learn a little bit about that, and you start to see the inflation that happened from all the stimulus just recently, 2020 and onward. And it's really obvious now. Like it's become really obvious, and it hasn't been. We're very privileged in North America in our finance. Like in a lot of other places and in other times, it's been very obvious that there's a huge money problem as hyperinflation hits, right? So um, but I think it becomes more obvious based on the severity of it. And I think that it has been pretty severe, the inflation that we've seen. And I think a lot of people are waking up to it. I know that was a big part of it for me. And then also generationally, right? Like we have a large money transfer from older generations to younger generations. And it's Bitcoin is that kind of thing where it comes into your life a little bit when you kind of need it. And like for me, I learned about Bitcoin in 2012, but I was living in a tent, hitchhiking around, like I had no money. So why would I care about this other type of money? Um, and again, in 2016 and 2017, I learned about it again and relearned and learned a little deeper. And then it was like, well, I want to start this business, this filmmaking business. So I can't buy Bitcoin and just have it there. I need to buy cameras and I need to work on this business. So it's just like you have to have some extra money to think about it, in my opinion, and to really hold it. Like it has to be you have to have a need to know, and I think that need to know is becoming more and more prevalent. Not just people having money, but like people thinking, okay, the money I do have is no good. Like it's degrading quickly.
I think there's one more thing. I was discussing this with a family member about breaking the stigma of talking about money. And I think that's pretty important first. That's the first step we need to do. This isn't about how much money you have. It's about changing how we keep account of the money. Like it's a complete switch over of a ledger system and how we keep track of each other's money. So that's, I think, breaking the stigma of because a lot of if you don't have money, you don't want to, like, it's a shame factor, especially here in the United States. And so I think that is probably the number one important step we need to do, is break that stigma. Same with psychedelics. It's so misunderstood. So really breaking that stigma of not being able to talk about whether it's you're falling behind on your bills, you can't pay for groceries, you can't feed your children because food prices went up, 40%, doubled in price, whatever. And so it's breaking that stigma, not just on the money side, but also on the psychedelic side, about like addiction, right? Like that's a stigma too. And so I think psilocybin citadel is coming in and trying to break that stigma first, to be able to have a safe psychedelic space where we can talk about, I'm having trouble like paying my bills, like, so we can, look, what skills do you have? We can recruit you, right? That's the type of environment we want to create, is to break that stigma of like money, talking about money or addiction, or and so forth. So yeah, I think that that's important for us to be able to have a safe space to be able to discuss, because community can come forward and change that in a heartbeat sometimes, right? Like, so it only takes one, the one right connection, and your life can completely change overnight, you know. So and I've had wonderful, great teachers that have taught me, in all aspects of life. And back to my late partner, shout out to him, and and my spirit crew. I know they're protecting me, but he was old school OG hippie, in the '60s, and lived in an like a ranch in NorCal, and like illegal ranch in NorCal, and did tried all kinds of crazy shit back in the '60s and '70s too. But like, they experienced inflation in the '70s when we went off the fiat standard too, right? And so, like my mom too, like, she remembers the oil shock. We were living in Japan. My mom's Japanese. So in 1973, when I was born, like, there was an oil shock that happened because of a Middle East war, right? And so toilet paper became scarce, and she remembers, like, these are the type of like intergenerational knowledge that gets, how did you survive when things were like doubling in price every year? Yeah, sure, it was 30 cents to 60 cents, but still, right? That's, like, so that's why inflation, we've been here before. If you talk to, your older generations, and how you navigated through it, and so that's why I think it's important for us to be able to like talk to the younger generations too about how money works, and like how to protect yourself, and think in that low time preference setting, so that you're looking out, 10 years into the future, 30 years into the future, maybe 3 generations into the future, and how you want to protect your legacy and pass it down to the next generation, whether it's within a family setting or in a community setting. So yeah, I think that we're going through a huge transitional time, in consciousness and how things work. So yeah, any type of these types of discussions we can have, and I want to really thank you guys, the podcast people that help, create these spaces for us to be able to talk openly about all these transformational changes that are happening in our lives. So thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm happy to have you. And that leads me basically here to my last question, which is, do you have any real world gatherings on the horizon? And I know you do Twitter spaces as well. So even a digital space, like, yeah, where can people get involved and yeah, be involved with you?
Yeah, I've been using Twitter X as my primary place. So anybody that wants to be involved with this project, please DM me directly on X or Twitter. I'm also at decrimnat at Gmail, so that you can email me as well. As far as the real life events, so that's the January Vision Quest, the Citadel Vision Quest. So we're gonna have a budget, and we're gonna really figure out which events we want to first hit up. So I think right now, this is a strong maybe, but we're probably going to go to Vegas in May, the Bitcoin conference on the Bitcoin side, and we want to hit up at least one psychedelic conference or fair or something. So we haven't chosen that one yet. So if anybody has any good, psychedelic conferences or settings, please let me know, because we want to bring the word of Bitcoin to the psychedelic space as well. So those are the two probably events that we're gonna try to hit up, and then we want to try to host one event here in the Northwest. And I have a couple venues that we're like looking at right now. So we'll have some field trips to those locations so the creatives can start looking at, what we want to create. But probably toward the late summer to fall time frame, because the Northwest is really beautiful here, and that's the mushroom season. October is mushroom season here in the Northwest. So not just psychedelic mushrooms, but we also want to showcase some amazing local gourmet mushrooms. You can pick like, I went to a mushroom fair in the peninsula, Olympic Peninsula, which is the only northern hemisphere rainforest here, and we have beautiful, beautiful natural settings here in the Northwest. So it'll probably be like a 3-day camping type of a festival setting that we want to try to host late summer to the fall time frame. So that's what we're shooting for 2025, just so we can learn. And I mean, the first year is the hardest because we got to set up all the Bitcoin network, like Lightning Network. We need Bitcoin homies too. So anybody that wants to be involved here, up here in the Pacific Northwest, Seattle, Greater Seattle area, please, we're looking for people. So that's sort of what we're trying to aim for. And right now we are just a pop up. It'll just be a pop up event. And then hopefully, as the legal structure gets firm, we want to try to have some, settings that we can be, essentially the service side of the psychedelics. So we want to be able to create spaces where people can heal, and that's that's the 10-year plan that we have. But yeah, in 2025 we really have some exciting stuff, and we want to showcase local artisans and craftspeople, and do some pop-up merchants, and I think right now we're looking at maybe like a day market and a evening of music and dance, kind of an event. So yeah, if anybody wants to be involved right now, I have we're calling it Pleb Fest. So we're really trying to figure out how to do Pleb Fest.
What do you think are some of the exciting things that are happening or going to happen in the future of Bitcoin? Like, what kind of optimistic vision do you have for Bitcoin in the future?
Oh my gosh. Wow, I could go on forever. I really think so. There's I'm just gonna mention Noster here real quick. So Noster is another technology that is a decentralized, essentially, it's not a platform, it's a client that you log in. And I think that is going to change the way we really do social media work. And it's just like Bitcoin is sovereign money, and psychedelics or psilocybin is sovereign um, mind. I think Noster is a sovereign identity. So Noster allows us, one, as activists, right? We will not get deplatformed because I own my identity and my address, and so I can plug in that identity to any of these clients, whether it's like a Reddit client or like a Instagram client or like a X Twitter client, and then plug myself in as Citadel, and then I carry with me all of my network, no matter where I plug in my messages, which is like, so I can messages, and then there's already Lightning built in, so that you can actually like create like online creators, be it like a meme. You can like get zaps, we're calling it zaps, that you get 21 sats for a funny meme or whatever. You can set it up any way you want to, so instead of a like or a love or whatever of these platforms, you're actually sending monetary value to people all over the world. So that is complete, that's going to change the game. That is going to completely change the game of social media. And content, I mean, content creators just like yourself, podcast 2.0 is happening, where you're actually streaming sats to whether it's music or informational information. You can stream sats back to the content creator directly and be able to compensate them without an ad model, so without an advertising model. So that's going to completely change the landscape, I think, of social media and and media in general. But that I mean, to me, it's exciting, because we can actually. I was just talking to Sarah about like, I'm really, I come from the Burning Man school, but I've done a lot of fundraising as well. So like we can do like, I was just saying we can do like a We Are the World video with all these like, creative, but we can do like the 80s telethon version of that now, where we can just put up a QR code and then people can stream, like tip us, as a fundraiser. Or there's Geyser Fund, which is the Kickstarter equivalent of the for Bitcoin, essentially. So all of these like amazing technology is available to us right now already, and it's just a matter of the creatives picking up these new tools to see what can be created. That's firmly what I believe is gonna like happen, probably here in the next two, like probably in the next 4 years, this epoch. I think it's gonna happen. So yeah, I think after Nostr, I'm sorry, after Bitcoin and Nostr gets implemented, you have direct access to those funds that you raise online. So fundraising in general for any artists or communities that want to build a group multi-sig wallet so that you co-own a treasury basically. So that's gonna change a lot of these nonprofit type of organizations. So yeah, I think that there is exciting times, but the younger generation and people are going to have to really teach each other how to utilize these technologies. And some of us are scouts. We like to move forward and see what, pick up the tools and say, what can we do with this? So that's what we're trying to do. But yeah, it's a really exciting times as far as like what you can do with all this technology that's available to us.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's very exciting times, and the future of tech is really bright with the focus on decentralized and empowering the individual. I mean, it's shifting. I think in this really meaningful way. Um, One last question here: do you have anything that we haven't covered in this podcast that you wanted to say?
Yeah. Can I ask you a question about your media work? Because you do alternative media, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm a filmmaker, and that's my I've created a media business called Different Media, and we do documentary filmmaking for the past I guess it's been 7 or 8 years now. I've done a big focus. I have an ongoing series about alternative dwellings, so people that live in vans and tiny houses or off grid. And then I've done a few other bigger films as well.
Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah. I mean, I think from a media perspective too, like um yeah, we want to create, some online content as well. So not just those events that we were talking about, but we're also talking about maybe doing some music videos or some kind of at least I'm telling everybody to chronicle their experience, with Bitcoin and like coming with their whatever they create with it, and so that we want to have at least some kind of a some media content at the end of the year to just like showcase what we can accomplish with this technology. So yeah, I think that's really the new realm is this marriage between the online cyberspace and the real life gathering spaces. And then that's really I'm hoping that's where the magic happens. And so yeah, that's sort of the big the two sides of like the cyberspace media side that's really changing, and then yeah, the artistic creative in space gathering healing spaces and community.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot to it. I mean, I've obviously gotten a passion for Bitcoin, and then with my film stuff, I'm kind of figuring out a way to do that. Right, like I actually have a film project up on Geyser that I'm fundraising for, and a series, and I'm linking up with a company here in Vancouver that is in Bitcoin, and I'm going to be filming a promo for them and including them in this series that I have an idea for. So it all connects in the real world and comes back to the internet and hopefully influences people right into to look into Bitcoin. That's what it is for me.
So when the time comes, can we hire you?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Definitely,
Yeah, we
we'll
need
talk.
media people for sure. So
Cool.
yeah. Yeah, that's great to know filmmakers. Yeah, I have a lot of um friends that are in the documentary and filmmaking business and music video production and so forth. So yeah, I'm really I was gonna go back in touch with them, but, like, people that are already on the Bitcoin network, you guys have a heads up. So, because we have a payment system already built in, like, if for the work that you guys do. So, yeah, yeah, we are hiring, really. I think that's kind of what we're looking to do in 2025, and, yeah, another thing that would be great to have is like, a bounty board built in to these social media platforms. So that if I have I need a graphics design for this brochure, and then I could just paste it, and then whoever can delivers gets the bounty, right? So, yeah, those kind of tools like job boards and bounty boards, I think would be great to have in a community setting. Yeah, I mean, there's places you can do that, but like, if it was already like implemented where like we're hanging out, that would be great. Like to be able to have a bounty board for online creators, too. So yeah, exciting times, but I think, yeah, I think it's gonna really start moving forward here in the next 4 years. So hopefully we'll see this co-creation manifesting cyberspace and in real life.
I agree. Yeah, yeah, awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time today, Laura, and thanks for sharing everything.
Thank you so much, Forrest.